With me in the studio is Lieutenant Governor Jenean Hampton. Jenean, it's great to have you on the program.
It's good to be back.
Hey, we're going to cover a lot of ground in this Commonwealth Matters program, and I'd like us to first get into politics and can regular people run for office, and people that might not be politically connected or don't have a lot of money. Mm-hmm. And the reason I'm asking you is because I think there are a lot of people who care about government and they want to make a difference, mm-hmm. but they might be intimidated. And I knew you before you ran for anything, mm-hmm. and I see you as just a regular person that wanted to make a difference. So where does somebody start if they're just a regular Kentucky citizen and they want to get involved with the process? Where would they start? Tell us about that.
Well, of course, you know, I got my start through the Tea Party movement. I got mm-hmm. Involved with the group in Bowling Green and we started paying attention to, actually first it was Washington, D.C., then Frankfurt, trying to unravel the bills and policies that they were putting forth. And I never planned to run for office, but I remember attending, however, the Commonwealth Policy Center's candidate training course with the intent of helping candidates to run. And I knew nothing about the process, a little bit about it from watching it, but just wanted to know the nuts and bolts, and that was a pretty good course. And so later in 2013, when I decided to run for the Kentucky State House, I pulled that binder off the shelf, and that's where I started. I at least knew where to start. I had also volunteered on someone's campaign, and that's a great place for people to get started if they just want to know about the process in general. It's just to volunteer on someone's campaign. They're always looking for volunteers, for workers to do various jobs. Yeah. And that can give you an inkling too. But I want to stress though that anybody can and should run for office. You know, you called us regular people. I'm a regular person. This is the first elected position I've ever held. As same for Matt Bevin, where we come from the private sector. I sold boxes is what I was doing shortly before running for this office, or running for the State House in 2014. And but I think we really need more regular, everyday people in Frankfurt and Washington, D.C., because I think their voices are getting lost.
Yeah. And of course, you and Governor Bevin were viewed as outsiders. Mm-hmm. You weren't really connected to the political establishment. Mm-hmm. You really didn't have a lot of name recognition. Mm-hmm. Governor Bevin had some because he ran for Senate the previous year. But you were viewed as long shot candidates, and yet you both still decided to run. You joined together as a team and ran. Mm-hmm. But what was it that motivated you to run for office? And even prior to that, though, I've seen you call yourself a reluctant candidate.
That's true. You know, when you watch the process the way I did through my Tea Party activity, and you see what goes on, and you see how long it takes a decision to get made. When you see how long it takes anything to get done, especially compared to the private sector, I just want no part of that. Of the political scene, and you know, and then you watch it. It's contentious, and people are sniping at each other, and they just don't seem to get a lot done in an efficient manner. So I never wanted to be a part of that. And really, what led me to run was prayer. And I really just threw my career to the Lord, and what I was hearing and feeling was run for office. Yeah. So be careful what you pray for, right?
So was it a still small voice, or were there other voices that you were hearing and other things that helped you to determine to run for office? And the reason I want to press into this is because I believe there are probably a lot of good people out there who care deeply about Kentucky. They care deeply about their communities, and they want to make a difference, but they might feel intimidated to run, or maybe they've thought about it, but they're just not sure. And I would like to help them to figure out, should they run, or what things should they be looking for, and what voices should they listen to?
Well, again, I would highly recommend, first of all, praying on it. But you know, don't be intimidated. I would say my advice would be, do not be intimidated by the process, because the process only works if we, the people, are active and engaged and informed. And who is we, the people? That's us. That's you. So I would highly encourage regular people, everyday people, to get in. It's not rocket science. We're not launching shuttles here. It's a political process. It's a process to determine what you offer, what you bring to the table, and then make your case. You decide how you can make your case. And the internet it's really an equalizer. The internet has so equalized the process for many of us because we can reach we can reach voters in a way that was impossible a few years ago. And so I would encourage people to jump in. Just jump in. Don't worry about what you don't know. You can pick it up as you go along, because that's what I did in my House race.
I've heard it said before, Lieutenant Governor, that politics is too important to be left to professional politicians. And it's along the lines of what you're saying, that this is a government of the people. I mean, this is our government, and we're blessed with just the ability to run for office, to put our name on the ballot, and then to share our ideas with the voters. And our vision for a better Kentucky and for a better community, whatever community we might be in. So you ran for the State House in 2014 against one of the longest-serving State House members, Jody Richards of Bowling Green. And what did you learn in that campaign? As a first-time candidate, just coming out of the Commonwealth Policy Center's candidate training, what did you learn coming out of that State House campaign?
Well, first of all, I did better than many people gave me credit for or thought I would do. And really, again, thank you for offering the candidate training
You're
course
welcome.
Because when I pulled that binder down, at least I had seen the steps, the big pieces in a campaign. So you need to raise money, but before you can raise money, you need to know what your target voter group looks like, how big it is. You need an A, B, and C plan. I developed an A, B, and C plan. If I raise this much money, I'll do this. This much money, I'll do this. I learned to fine tune my message, and to assess my own ability and skills, and to distill that into what I bring to Kentucky, what I was willing to do for Kentucky, and to be able to convey that in a concise message. And that's really what the whole political campaign is all about, is conveying your message to voters in a way that you convince them to vote for you. And there's yard signs and bumper stickers and all the things that go there. And I did learn a lot. I did. I could still write a 30-second radio ad.
That's great.
I really enjoyed the whole process, writing the radio ads, doing the mailers. Our mailers were way too wordy. We realized that in hindsight. But
so what you're talking about are some of the nuts and bolts of a political campaign. And this is something, by the way, that you and I are going to be doing a condensed training in Madisonville in just a few weeks. And one reason why, and I appreciate you joining me for that and helping to equip local candidates to run for office, but the reason why we're doing this training even so late into the election year is because local offices are still open for filing. The filing deadline isn't until August.
That's
I
right.
want to say August the 12th.
I'm not sure. I know it's in August, and many people may not know that. They may believe that the window closed in January, but that was for statewide races.
Right.
But for the local races, you're absolutely right. It's not too late. It's not too late to jump in, but it's fairly early right now.
So anybody watching this or listening to us, thinking about running for office, think about attending the Commonwealth Policy Center candidate training event coming up June the 2nd in Madisonville. There's information on the Commonwealth Policy Center website. We've got just about just a short amount of time here, but one of the things I wanted to ask you is, now that you're in office, serving as Lieutenant Governor for the state of Kentucky, is it as you had imagined it to be?
Well, actually my expectations were fairly low, especially after watching watching Frankfurt through my Tea Party activity. But it's actually better than I thought it would be, because if you look up what the Lieutenant Governor actually is supposed to do by statute and by the Constitution, it isn't much. The duties are not much, and so it's meant I've been able to define the duties. And Governor Bevin has given me a wide latitude to do pretty much what I want. And so I've realized that most of the activities involve kids. School visits, whether it's going around and talking about aerospace and aviation to kids, developing the Lieutenant Governor's Entrepreneurship Challenge for high schoolers, the Lieutenant Governor's STEM Challenge for girls, to introduce young ladies to science, technology, engineering, and math. So just a number of things, a literacy program that I developed.
That's super.
And so it's been fantastic.
I'm glad to hear that, and we appreciate your service to the Commonwealth.
Thank you.
The Commonwealth Policy Center is speaking up for life, natural marriage, religious liberty, and fiscal integrity. We do it by recruiting and training conservative political candidates, researching and addressing important issues, interviewing political leaders across Kentucky, writing thoughtful newspaper columns for local and statewide newspapers and websites, and creating engaging radio commentaries and programs. We're strengthening churches by speaking to congregations and hosting town hall meetings, and by presenting relevant conferences on today's issues. We're working to reinforce the Commonwealth's founding principles and renew our future promise. Learn more and join with us at commonwealthpolicycenter.org.
We are seeing significant changes in the state of Kentucky. In fact, in the last 2.5 years, we've seen policy changes in Frankfort that have resulted in major changes at the local level, state level. So I'm thinking of right to work. Kentucky's become a right to work state. The prevailing wage law has been repealed.
Yes.
And that's resulted in more businesses coming into Kentucky. In fact, last year, there was $9.2 billion, I believe it was, in new development or brand new businesses coming in.
Correct.
Expansion or new businesses coming in.
And that was a record. The previous record was $5.1 billion in any given year. And so we almost doubled in 1 year.
So you can see where actual policy changes result into actual real changes in real life. I mean, that's almost $4 billion more, almost double.
Well, that's right, and
the
companies tell us. They tell us. Brady Industries is an example. They were prepared to walk if the governor did not sign that bill. It had come down to Kentucky and another state, and the right to work legislation had passed, but it hadn't been signed yet, and he was waiting to see if the governor was going to sign it or back out, and he would not have come if we were not a right to work state. So
of course Brady Industries is the aluminum plant in far eastern Kentucky.
Yes.
And we're talking about, was it 500 new jobs?
Initially 500 jobs.
High-paying jobs too.
High-paying jobs, but they typically where they plant a facility, it expands. We could see that up to 3,000 within a few years.
Okay, well, that's good news for eastern Kentucky that's had a depressed economy.
Yes.
We've also seen an expansion of the Georgetown Toyota plant, significant, I think $1 billion expansion there. We saw Amazon locate a new facility in northern Kentucky.
That's right, and I directly credit Governor Bevin for closing that deal. That deal was dead. And Governor Bevin actually closed the deal and convinced them to come to Kentucky.
How about that? Not far from the studio where we're recording, there's a new plant that just broke ground about a week ago, the Novelis plant.
That's right.
Which is another aluminum company. They're going to make panels for vehicles, cars and trucks, as I understand it.
And they are here because we are a right to work state.
So we're seeing all of this good development, more investment, more jobs available, and that's reflective in the low unemployment numbers. There was a finding that came out just the other week that found that Kentucky's at record low unemployment, about 4%.
Yes.
Lowest it's been since the numbers were first tabulated in late 70s, I guess, about 40 years. And so that's a good thing. So we've seen some major changes in Frankfort, which didn't come without controversy or with some level of pain. I was up there during that session when Right to Work eventually passed, and we saw protests. We saw people from not just Kentucky, but from out of the state come in, and they were protesting, saying how bad it would be for workers, and yet we're seeing the opposite happen.
Well, that's right, and and the union workers were concerned. They view right to work as anti-union, and of course, it's not anti-union. When you bring more companies in, it in fact gives the unions an opportunity to possibly unionize additional companies. And it's really there to protect the workers. Is what that legislation is all about. So, you know, it did get a little contentious. There were some protesters there, but the governor held his ground.
So we're seeing good fiscal changes, Lieutenant Governor. Also on the social issues front,
Yes.
we've seen just in 2.5 years 5 pro-life bills enacted into law, which is unprecedented in Kentucky. To see that many solid pro-life bills, including ultrasound, the 20-week abortion ban, there was an 11-week abortion ban, the pain-capable Child Act, a lot of good legislation there. Can we expect any more pro-life legislation coming from the Bevin administration?
I'm not sure what's in the works, but of course you know that those bills were typically stalled before the Republicans took the House. Those bills would pass the Republican-led Senate, but then get stalled in the Democrat-led House. And it wasn't until we flipped the House that those bills were passed. And so we have a respect for life that is just fundamental to everything else that we do. And so it was wonderful to see those bills finally get passed.
Yeah, we are encouraged by that as well. We see the life issue as a pivotal, really a pillar issue for Kentucky.
It is.
Pivoting from that, I want to go to another life issue, school shootings across the country. I know that you, when there was a shooting in Marshall County, you had a chance to pray with the families
Yes.
of students who were killed. Some are saying that there need to be more gun restrictions. That we need to ban certain type weapons. Is that the solution to the school shootings, safety issue in the public schools?
It's not. Every time there's a shooting, the conversation always turns towards gun control. And what they're missing is that there was a time, and the governor's pointed this out, and there was a time in this nation where young people actually took their guns to school. It was not unusual at all, whether they were hunting or maybe they got something for Christmas they wanted to show off, and they were not shooting each other. So the fundamental question that I always ask when these things happen is what has changed? And it's at a societal level, a disrespect for life that young people believe this is their only option, is to hurt themselves and others as well. In fact, one of the tragedies in the Marshall County school shooting is the young man who did the shooter is an avowed atheist, and he stated that his life has no value and neither does anyone else's. And so what is missing in that young man's life, that is what he believes. And again, the governor has pointed out that let's look at the societal issues that are in fact leading to these shootings. The weapon doesn't matter. It'll be, if there were no guns, it would be a different weapon. So we need to look at those things before that issue is resolved.
Moving from the issue of school shootings to another crisis that takes place every day in Kentucky is the opioid epidemic. It's the last statistics I looked at, Lieutenant Governor, was that about 4 Kentuckians die every day from an opioid overdose. And a number of different bills have been proposed in Frankfort to address this. We've seen naloxone being made available to first responders. We've seen needle exchange programs, which that was, of course, directed towards stemming the effects from other health issues, other diseases being spread. But is there a limit to what government can do when it comes to opioid addiction or any kind of drug addiction?
I think there is a limit because again, and this kind of dovetails on what I said on the gun issue too. It's at a societal level. What is it that is leading people to decide that this is their option? Are they bored? Are they, what is it? Is there peer pressure? Why can't they resist this pull to do these things? I remember when I was growing up in Detroit, I saw a little bit of drug use, not a lot, but I saw a little, and it was enough though to scare me off of it because these were people who were not in control of their own lives. And that just didn't seem like a good road to go down. I also know that the unemployment rate is somewhat related to that because idle hands are the devil's workshop. Let's get people to work. Let's get them to work. Let's get them with meaningful work, work where they can support themselves, and perhaps then they're less likely to turn to these avenues.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, so you saw when you were growing up in the inner city where drug use could lead. You saw the a negative face to it, and you realized you didn't want to do that. But what
Yes.
makes it attractive today, though, do you think, to people? So many Kentuckians, this was about 1,500 that died last year, maybe 1,600 in opioid overdoses.
You know, if we could solve that, we could just put that in a bottle and sell it around the nation. I'm not sure what it is. And again, I know peer pressure is in the mix, but I honestly don't know what the answer to that question is.
How about role models? And I know this is something, you've been a role model to a lot of young people. You speak in schools across the Commonwealth. You engage in literacy programs, the entrepreneurship challenge. Do you think we need more role models? And we just have a few minutes to close on that thought.
Role models maybe, but I think perhaps if one of the things I see, here's what I suggest. Every adult has a story. My story is no more significant or impressive than anyone else's. And I think a lot of young people are looking at adults and assuming they went from 0 to 60 overnight successes, and none of us did. Yeah. We all had a bumpy road. We had speed bumps. We had setbacks. And I would just encourage every adult to share your story. Share your story with the young people in your lives, and share those speed bumps. I think it's helpful because that's what I do in schools. I've been in over 130 schools now, and I share those stories and I take questions, and the kids are very appreciative. They respond to it. So I would encourage every adult to do so.
All right. Very good. Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you. Thank you for.